I always like to share with colleagues in the team that an idea can spark and change what a business believes they want and need, right? And really, when you distill down and ask to what is the problem that you're trying to solve for, sometimes that sparks different ideas that take you off in different tangents, or tangents that the client who's approaching you hasn't seen. And so we always feel like it's important to provide those options and we call them our bonus ideas. We're like, hey, I know this is a little different from maybe what you were expecting, but it got us thinking in this avenue. And those bonus ideas can spark different initiatives, different outcomes, different possibilities.
Good afternoon, Chad. Welcome. Good to see you. It's been a fantastic 1 year of engagement with you and your agency. Welcome to the podcast. Waterloo Grit is a podcast where we are hoping to energize entrepreneurs across the world, certainly the region. And a big shout out and thank you to the David Johnston R&T Park for supporting this podcast. So welcome to Waterloo Grit, Chad.
Thanks for having me. It's great. And it's still strange to hear 1 year of engagement because it just feels like it was just yesterday that we were kicking the project off with you folks. So
absolutely. And the timing is fantastic. Our new brand is out there for the world to see. You guys have done a kick-ass job of it. And fantastic stuff all over.
Yeah, we're thrilled with the feedback that we've gotten. I know it was kind of strange that on your launch day, not only was our social feed blowing up with all the wonderful things that the AC was sharing, but also people reaching out personally, and it was kind of the accolades that we got, the kind words was just amazing. So it was a great day all around.
Fantastic, absolutely, 100% agree. All right, let's get into the thick of things. I'd love to hear, and so will the audience, love to hear your personal story, right? What brings you to where you are today? What are the things you've achieved in life, your academic accomplishments, professional accomplishments? Yeah. So what's your journey like, Chad?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's an interesting journey as I am the son of a fine artist and an ex-NHL hockey player. So my dad's favorite joke to share is that I got my mom's sports ability and his artistic ability. And he thinks that that's a real zinger that slays at all the family functions. I should add a note to that, though. He's quite an accomplished guitar player, so I'll take that artistic ability if that's where it came from. Right. But I think growing up, we were always exposed to, my brothers and I, both sides of the spectrum, where it was, we were playing sports, but also heavily creative and involved in the arts. And I think, I remember at an early age, my friends would bring their GI Joes into, class. I think it was maybe grade 3, and I would draw them for them. And then I saw an opportunity where maybe I could start getting a little something on the side, whether it was like a dollar here or there, or a little something extra from them at lunch to give them a drawing of their GI Joe. So I think at that early age, I knew that there was something I really wanted to do with the arts. And I was like, hey, my love of drawing, how I could just sit down and sketch for hours. There's something that's really transferable in that. All throughout, high school, I went to a special arts program here in Kitchener-Waterloo and really honed my skills as a fine artist. And then when it came to graduation time, I actually worked at a coffee shop downtown, and I had a couple options where there was a lot of my friends graduating that were going off into fine arts. I, had heard the fine arts realm where you're involved a little bit more in academia, a little bit more grant proposals, and things like that, and the fine arts side of things. And I wasn't sure if that was necessarily for me. I felt like I really liked new media and was very excited about computers. And then at this coffee shop I worked at, just to circle back to that story, there was an individual that used to come in all the time, and he'd be on his laptop and he would spend hours in there. And over the course of a few months, I chatted him up, started a bit of a friendship, and turned out that he was himself a graphic designer, and he shared with me some of his work, what he was doing, and agreed that he would teach me some things about graphic design on the side. So I got super excited about this and was very fortunate. And it turns out that gentleman now, he's down in Cupertino. So he works for Apple now, which is pretty cool. And every once in a while, I connect with him online. But that really was the bug that got me started on the design side of things. And from there, it was I was involved with a collective of artists in downtown Kitchener called Core Gallery and Studios. So it was a group of 30 artists that worked to procure funding from HRDC Canada. And we set up this art center that included a recording studio. There was 3 gallery spaces, photography darkroom, printmaking studio, and also access to a glass blowing equipment and studio. And for a few years, I operated out of that as the resident graphic designer. So I was exposed to doing a lot of the design work to promote the shows that we put on the studio. I worked with individuals that were in the recording studio and packaging for their recordings. And back in the day, I'm dating myself, those were CDs, and doing posters and things of the such. So I really got to see just how much of variety I could do with graphic design. And I really loved being the in-house resident designer there. And then, of course, as you get a little bit older and a little bit more serious about your career, it was kind of what would be my next step. And I applied for a job at the Center in the Square. They were looking for a resident graphic designer. And I thought to myself, this is going to be amazing. This is exactly what I'm doing at the art studio, but this is more of a job that's regular, that's not dependent on funding, that is right up my alley and a great starting point where I could, kickstart my career as a graphic designer. And at that point, I didn't get a call back for an interview because I didn't have the formal education. And I was a self-taught designer at that point, obviously with the help of my mentor that lent me the software. But then I had a change of heart and felt like I really needed to go to design school. And if this is the path for me, then I needed to get more serious about that. So I am so grateful for the Center in the Square for that rejection. And it really was a changing aspect of my path in my career, because going to design school was the greatest thing ever. And I learned so much. And then from design school, I worked in-house for Krug Furniture as a resident or as a graphic designer, and then eventually ended up with another agency in town that I grew at for maybe about 10 years. And again, over that 10-year time, was exposed to so many different aspects of design and marketing, digital design, that I am just forever in debt for my experience at that company. And then I got to this point where I really wanted to make sure that what I was contributing was actually, I could see the effects of it in the community where I work and play. And that was really big to me. And the agency I worked at did, I think 99% of their work was in the States, which was amazing exposure. But I got to a point where, I'm a proud Canadian. I'm a proud KW resident. And all of the amazing things that are happening in the region, and, the AC being a catalyst for, a lot of that activity, it's kind of, I wanted to give back. I wanted to contribute to it in one way, shape, or form. So I eventually met Erin Martin, one of the founders of Him and Her. We got talking for coffee one afternoon, and she shared with me a little bit about her agency, Him and Her, that she had started, and her philosophy, the importance of community, And if you've ever met Erin, the only way you can describe her is her personality and is infectious. I left that conversation just feeling so energized. And I reached out to her a few days later and I said, hey, I don't know if there's an opportunity for us to be able to work together, but I really, really felt inspired. And I'd love to be a part of what you're trying to build. Right. And that brought me to him and her, which has led me to meeting you, Jay. And that is my story, a little bit of a roundabout story in terms of my career and how I ended up where I ended up.
Awesome. No, thank you for sharing that with us, Chad. So tell us a little bit about him and her. I've had the opportunity, of course, to work with you and the extended team, and it's been wonderful. I think for the audience, it'll be great to know, what does him and her do? What does it stand for? Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So first and foremost, him and her is a creative agency, and we also offer a full roster of marketing services as well too. So we like to look at ourselves as solutionists. We can solve many problems. There's times where we might not know the answer right off the get-go or where to go, but we're the type of organization and agency that would roll up our sleeves and get a little gritty, not to sound super punny, and figure things out and dive in. What the agency really focuses on, I think that there's so many things, but I'd say branding, e-commerce, obviously digital experience solutions, social media, marketing automation, campaign work, etc. Really, there is a full range of services that we provide. But at the end of the day, it does point back to the community where we work and play. And we think of all the exciting things that are happening in the region, how many new companies, tech startups, how much growth we have here. Also, as well as a lot of the small businesses that contribute to that culture and really define us and make this area unique. That's really our sweet spot, as well as working with a lot of the real estate developments as this area continues to grow that really have been our kind of niche. So I like to sum it down to, whether it's a tech company or mid-market businesses that are looking to achieve that next level, that would be us. If it's a small business that really has something unique and really wants the best of what an agency has to offer without having to necessarily go to like a Toronto market and pay Toronto prices, then that would be our sweet spot. And then if there's developers that are looking for ways in which they could promote their buildings and be able to share what that building lifestyle is, that's something that is really niche to us, where we really honed in on that market and feel like we've created something that's proprietary and unique for those individuals.
Got it. Yeah, it's interesting, the times that we live in. Technology as well as marketing has evolved to a point where now we begin to see an intersection of tech, marketing, and creativity, right? So it will be useful for me, for sure, and potentially some of our audience, if you can articulate the difference or the evolution, if you will, of a creative agency. And in your case, certainly you sound like a full stack offering of creativity and marketing versus a pure marketing agency or a digital marketing agency.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think on the creative side, one thing that I feel is that, and it's a little cliche, but creativity does come from anywhere, and it can come from anyone. And it is a product of collaboration in my mind. I always like to approach projects like a hive mind mentality. I think that more of that creative agency approach, as opposed to more of a conventional kind of marketing approach, is that there's a lot of blending of the roles. There's a lot of blending of the ideas. It's not like everyone is compartmentalized as much in some of their lanes. I'm not to say that across the board, like that there's marketing companies out there that are a little bit more blended, but that's just from my experience that I can speak from, that I think differentiates it. The other thing too is that, I always like to share with colleagues in the team that an idea can spark and change what a business believes they want and need, right? And really, when you distill down and ask to what is the problem that you're trying to solve for, sometimes that sparks different ideas that take you off in different tangents, or tangents that the client who's approaching you hasn't seen. And so we always feel like it's important to provide those options and we call them our bonus ideas. We're like, hey, I know this is a little different from maybe what you were expecting, but it got us thinking in this avenue. And those bonus ideas can spark different initiatives, different outcomes, different possibilities. And I think that that's really something that we do a pretty good job of, is making sure that we hear you, we hear the problem that you're looking to solve, and we understand the challenges, but we also want to give you ways in which you can look at it in different ways. So, there's many ways you can solve a problem, and for us, it's trying to find that right mix and trying to do something new and different to get noticed. So we don't really hold back in that regard, and I think it's something that we just kind of will always lean into the team and say, yeah, just like go wide, throw things against the wall. Like, don't edit yourself out of the gate when you're ideating as a team. Get as much out there as possible. And then we can always come back and kind of hone in on individual ideas after the fact. I know I just kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent. Did that answer your question, Jay, or did I just kind of deviate?
No, it's a great way you articulated it. And I had a series of potential follow-up questions, and I'll lead off with one of them. So if you look at an agency from the outside, it often, you see different structures, right? You look at different agencies, and I'm going to make this up to some degree, but you have structures like the piece of the agency that focuses on the brand. Then there's another piece of the agency that potentially focuses on the fulfillment piece. And clearly there's a piece of the agency that does the creative piece, right? So how much as the organization, as a creative organization like him and her, as you evolve and become bigger, how detrimental is the structure? Or is it even detrimental, right? You want to keep those creative juices flowing, but at the same time, it's an organization. You got to, treat it like a business, etc.
Yeah, that's a great question, because and something that we've talked about internally too in our evolution. I think it's important that yes, there is a certain extent of process or structure that you need as you grow, but we are very mindful and cognizant of that. We don't want that to overwhelm or to change the way in which we kind of go about doing business ourselves. So it's always going to be core to us that we don't lose that root of our identity. And I think, the fact that all of the leadership team, that's something that we're actively talking about and always using as kind of a gauge with where we're at as we continue to grow, that's a good sign that we don't want to lose what is core to our identity, what has gotten the success that we've achieved so far. And, it's part of your DNA. And I think when an organization starts to, lean too far away from that DNA, it can create a lot of disruption and friction. And at times it's difficult for companies to kind of recover from that. Right. We're of the mindset that this is what got us to the game, and we shouldn't be afraid to maintain that.
Yeah, I can imagine. So do you folks do anything that fosters and keeps that creativity in the DNA going, right? Do you do, I don't know, crazy radical offsites that just get your brains to explode? What do you do? What do you do that's different from a traditional organization, I guess?
Yeah, I think, leading into the individuals that are there, I think if you do a little look through all of the the people that consist of him and her and see them on the gram and what they're up to, you'll see that there's a wide variety of creative side hustles and exploration that is happening on their own personal time. So what we try to do is encourage and bring that into the fold of our everyday. A great example of that, and she may be mortified that I'm going to shout her out, but we have one designer, Amy Esplin, who really got excited about 3D and motion graphics and utilizing Cinema 4D. So in her own personal art was exploring the software and what she could do with it and what she could create. And then it got to the point where we could tap into those skills that she brought to the table for some of our clients and some of the projects where it was kind of like, hey, do you know what would be really awesome if for this hero banner, we had this and it was animated and it did X, Y, Z. And could we do that? I think Amy could do that. And so that's one way where we kind of look to bring creativity to the team and kind of say, if that's your side hustle, share it. We want to learn about it. We want to know what gets you going. We want to know what your passion is. And how do we make sure that that passion can become part of what you do on a daily basis as well, which is pretty exciting. The other side of it, and maybe a little bit more conventional, but, making sure, and something that I've mentioned to the team, at least half an hour a day, or half an hour a week, to, and not after work hours, but, or on your lunch, because I know sometimes you're looking at your billable hours, et cetera, but to take that time and just remember why you fell in love with design, why you fell in love with creativity, why you, this was the right path for you. Cause I think at times when you're working for clients, and if, your vision gets altered or doesn't come through clean on the other side as you originally were hoping for, it can lead to, sometimes you get a little bit jaded, or you're like, oh, I really wish that idea could have saw the light of day. But you offset that by looking at all the amazing things that individuals are doing out there. And never more has design been so accessible and at our fingertips that we can just tap into it through the interweb to see all the amazing work that people are out there doing. And spending in half an hour, you can just feel so recharged just by seeing what's out there and what's possible. So there's always a lot of little haunts on the interweb that you go to and can pull that inspiration from. And then I'd say the third thing, which is kind of is related to creativity, is I think you have to have, and for me personally, a little bit more of that balance, that wellness approach. I think that is really key, because being able to take that moment, to take those breathers, to recharge. I like to do a little bit of meditating, and I find that when you get to that meditative zone, usually it's about 10 minutes in for me, I find, where your brain kind of shuts off. I don't know what it is, but you're just more open and susceptible to ideas that are out there in the ether, just to kind of jump in your head. So finding ways in which you can get to that level where you're not even thinking, I need to be creative at this moment and solve for this problem, but you're in a state with which it just naturally occurs and comes to you, and jotting it down. So getting to that point is something that, it is what I encourage. It's not for everyone. Some people, they find it's exercising. It's like going for a run, and 2 kilometers in, they get to that same kind of flow state. Right.
Nice. I almost have a mind to start a startup, which is a discovery marketplace for all, and list down and curate all the websites and microsites that creative folks go to. I'd be super thrilled to figure out, what are the kinds of places that creative folks go to.
And that's something we do once a month. We get the team together and we call it our What's Poppin' meetings. And that's just for people to kind of share what they're looking at, what they're excited about, what's bringing inspiration into their life. Yeah. And then we share in Slack, our channel for it, just all the links. So we started to create a database like that for ourselves at H&H. Yeah.
You got to make that public, Chad. Even if it requires monetization, I'm sure there'll be takers for it.
Yeah, we'll maybe look at a startup. I think there's an organization that can help us with that out there, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, I can put you in touch with an accelerator that has access to a bunch of startups.
Exactly.
Staying course. So if a company were to approach you, right, ideally a small stage tech company, and they come up with the idea of, hey, this is the product that we have, and we want to launch an app or or dress up our website to be able to take that to market. Mm-hmm. Can you walk us through what is the internal creative process that happens in the background before you come back with a concept or a prototype or whatever that looks like?
Yeah, for us, it is how can we be as immersed in their world as possible? How much research? How much can we understand about them as an organization? Them as in terms of like the product that they're developing, what the problem the project solves for, and who that is for. Even who they are as a company, the people that you're talking to, those individuals, and what else is like that or out there in the world. There's sometimes is where it's completely unique and you're dealing with an AI technology that solves for something that you've never seen before. Or there's other times where it's a refinement on an existing idea, but just making it all that much better. So really, we like to view ourselves as that extension of that team and working in partnership, and that we feel as much information as we have, as much knowledge we have about the company, it really allows us to go as wide as possible when we're doing that, really divergent thinking on the creative side of things. Because one little nugget that you can get from a stakeholder interview or an external stakeholder interview can spark so many ideas that you normally wouldn't have. So I think it's really key that it is that immersion. And for us, it's fun. Like we really want to be that bright spot in the day for our clients, that they're looking forward to engaging with the H&H team, that they're like, oh, geez, I can hardly wait to see what they're coming to the table with now, or what some of their thinking or some of their ideas are. So that is paramount for us. But really, once we have that basis and that research and that understanding, it's looking at what are the ways in which we could tackle that problem and making recommendations on that. So sometimes it's we heard A and we think A is the right way to go, but here's a couple tweaks. Other times it's we heard A and really we think B is valid, and here's why B makes a lot of sense and solves the problem in a different way. And then other times and here's C. This might be a little bit more oddball or a little bit different or pushing the boundaries a little bit. But we want to make sure that we're providing that range, because there is a great Netflix show. I forget the individual, but he was the lead product designer at Instagram. And the quote that he had was, as creatives, it's our job to find the edges without going over. And that's what that concept phase is, right? So that's the freedom to find those edges, right? So in, the A, B, C option, whatever that may be, that's what we're really trying to identify for our clients. Where is that comfort zone? Where is the edge? And sometimes, you have a concept that goes over and it's identified by your client partners at that point, but it's a safe spot where you're having that conversation, right? Right. And then from that point on, once the idea is lit, that spark is ignited. It's how do we translate that concept into reality? How do we bring it to life? What channels does it bring to life? What experiences bring to life? Like how tactile can we make that to really make it something that's resonant for the audience, and that brings the value that these companies are looking for, and that's why they're engaging with us.
Yeah. Absolutely. And speaking of the spectrum of customers that you work with, it's very diverse, right? Based off of your website and conversations we've had. Is there a customer profile that you'd love to engage with? Be it be it the sector, be it the size of the company? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
is there one that you prefer over the other?
Yeah, great question. I think I've talked a little bit about the real estate component of that. So I think that's a real niche market where, and I mean, it does sound boastful, but I think we slay the dragon at that. We do a fantastic job. So that's definitely one avenue. But when we get into kind of tech companies or any mid-market business that's really looking to accelerate their growth to get to that next level, we're really looking for someone that's hungry to innovate but unsure of how to get there, and willing to kind of put themselves down and say, we've tried some things, we're trying this ABC, we're not seeing the results that we're hoping for, and we need help. We need expertise that your team brings to the table to become that extension of that organization. So that's really key for us. Also, with those tech and more mid-market businesses, it's that they have some established background already, or they have a strong foundation to build off of in place. I think there are a lot of in our community, a lot of startups that are bubbling up and whatnot. For us, the fit is important, and it makes sure that on that side of things that there is a little bit more of a stronger foundation. That's one thing that we really were initially drawn to with the AC and the incubation program, is just how strong a foundation you set those organizations up with, and things along those lines, right? That felt like it's kind of in our sweet spot. And then the other avenue would be the small businesses and the community side of things that I already kind of talked about, which I think with the homogenous and amorphous kind of Amazon approach to you can buy and be delivered everything, to really hold on to your core community culture, you need to have those niche businesses in your community that are just those wonderful experiences that you feel like you find and develop or discover. So I'm thinking of like the Reed's chocolates or the For All ice creams that we've had the fortunate, ability to work with. And those institutions, they create community, and it's important that, we don't lose sight of them as we have, more big box businesses and more of those internet companies that are bubbling up along the way as well too, right? So those are kind of our multiple sweet spots that we look for, but definitely the lanes that we like to operate within.
Got it. And sticking to tech, right?
Yep.
Early stage startups today are clearly not only here to stay, but the future of work almost points to the fact that everybody at some point is going to be entrepreneurial in nature.
Yeah.
And when you encounter a client of that stage, early stage, what are the decision points that drive you to take that business? Is it the fact that, on the plus side, it's very malleable, right? You can sort of build it with the founder. On the con is capital, right? And oftentimes tech startups, at least, they struggle with at least the ones I've interacted with. They're so focused on getting product out of the door and getting early validation that the sense of creative design to be able to scale it almost comes as an afterthought. So would you profess that that's the wrong way to go about it? Are they better off doing it early? That's, I think, question number one. And the other question is, from your perspective, is there a way by which you can embrace early stage startups or early stage companies, forget tech startups, as much as a larger company?
Yeah. For the individuals that value design and design thinking, and that understand that identity, and like exactly to your point, is important early on in the process, right? Because, and I've shared the quote with you before, but brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So if you're not paying attention to that, then you're not cognizant of, what people are saying about you, which affects so many things for your business. So individuals that see that value, that understand that, and thankfully, like a lot of the entrepreneurial kind of like pioneers, like the Jobs and the Musks or whatever, have kind of preached to design thinking or the importance of design and creativity. So we're seeing a lot of that obviously over the last decade kind of trickle into that approach. But it's something that, really should differentiate the company, right? So you may have a product that is over the moon, fantastic, revolutionary, right? But if you're not able to communicate the benefits, the why behind that product and the why behind you exist, and give an emotional reason for people to believe in you and what you're doing, then you're not going to get the traction that you're hoping for. Because unfortunately, I think for startups and for products, it isn't if you build it and you have this amazing revolution, people will discover it. It's how do you get to them? How do you reach them? And how do you communicate? And a lot of times in the tech sector, you'll encounter very brilliant cerebral thinking that can sometimes be overwhelming with the jargon, right? That's the lens that we can also help, is how do you distill that down to a little bit more of a level which is more commonly understood, to kind of humanize that a little bit more. So that's something that, we always look for as well. So, our right fit are those people that see that value of what we bring to the table and are looking for a partner, and they're looking for individuals that, are going to provide those ideas that might differ from what they originally thought they want, but they're just open and accessible to them, and not necessarily saying, hey, do you know what? I just want you to color it this way and that's the way it should be. But no, we prefer the other lane where it's a little bit more on the divergent thinking.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head with the choice of word partner, right? I think a lot of times the engagement with the creative folks are thought of as a tactical relationship, as opposed to that of one that stems from a true partnership, where you get the essence of the product and you sit in the seat of the customer. There was this fascinating story I remember from years ago when Amazon launched in India, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, this at that point was, they just leapfrogged into mobile first, and they had the app was out, people were shopping, but it was very quickly they realized that a lot of the transactions between search and completion is high, but discovery and search is low. And and they went about it. They very quickly found out that the audience in India, especially tier 2, tier 3 cities, have never encountered a cell phone or a laptop for that matter. And for the first time, they have this device in their hands. And believe it or not, the little magnifying glass that you see at the top for search was construed as a tennis racket.
Wow.
Yeah, they never thought of, this particular audience never associated search with the magnifying glass, right? And the localization to the Indian context, once they changed it, sales went through the roof. They immediately had insane amounts of conversion. So going back to your point of how do you sit in the shoes of the customer is such a key element to the process that I think oftentimes, especially tech entrepreneurs, I think lose sight of it because they're in love with their own technology, that they forget the desire for sitting in the shoes of the customer.
Yeah, and we totally understand that from that partner perspective. And when you think of it, like you have your funding, your investment to get things going. You're working with your product design to hit any benchmarks that you establish, and you might not have the wherewithal or the means internally to say, we need to be focusing on this identity side of things and who we are and how we communicate that, or even have that expertise, right? So really, that's why we are an extension of their team, because they could come to an agency like H&H and, say, I need some of what you bring to the table to be able to, effectively get my product to market in the way that I know will gain the most traction. And having that honesty to say, and I don't know how to get there, that's why I'm coming to you, is definitely key. And finding that right fit for us in terms of our clients.
Yep, absolutely. Just switching topics a bit, right? If one were to get into the space that you're in, and clearly you've traversed this journey through multiple organizations and at multiple stages. One of the things I've noticed, especially the last 5 years or so, there's a ton of really good freelancers, and I'm guessing some of them migrate to developing an entrepreneurial mindset and build an agency either around them or they join them, right? So the question is, two questions, I guess. One is, if there's a freelancer out there, in his or her 20s, what are the pros and cons of staying a freelancer and developing an agency around themselves? And the second question, I guess, is, as a client, if you're nimble, agile, would you recommend them going to a freelancer or to an agency?
Yeah, so great questions. First off, I think for freelancers, in their 20s, coming out of design school, we do work closely with Conestoga College. They have an amazing program. I'm an alum, so I'm going to boost it because I owe so much to them. But seeing them, be able to grow and be diverse and the types of projects they get, or the different organizations that they're exposed to, is key. So, one agency doesn't function the same as the other agency, even though they're kind of in the same ballpark, right? So if you're freelancing for those agencies, then you're going to be exposed to different ways of doing things. And it allows you the basis to kind of formulate your own opinions about, okay, I'm learning from them, but what do I think is the best way to solve problems? So you can kind of internalize that, which is awesome. And then being able to, if it was reaching out and working with a startup engaging with a freelancer, I'd say it depends on the task and the ask of what you'd be wanting from them. So, it'll be, if it's something that's a little bit more on the pure creative and pure design side of things or whatever, I think that's always a great avenue to kind of reach out and explore to. Or if there's like additional production help or speed and efficiencies, I think that's what freelancers bring a lot of value to. And when they're starting out, and then from there, freelancers can grow into like some pretty phenomenal, amazing businesses where, you're just doing that on the regular. So once you hit that sweet spot and you become a freelancer that has a lot of experience in freelancing in terms of the creative design, or as an art director, or a creative director, you're bringing a lot more of that lens of strategy that you've brought to the plate. So I'd say for a tech company that's looking for freelancers, think of the background, where that individual is coming from, what you need, and who's best suited from that. So this area alone has so many great, amazing freelancers and freelance options out there. And you see that there's a lot of people that still feel that Waterloo bug, that they're like, no, I don't want to go off to Toronto. I don't want to go to another city. I love this area and it's exciting what's being built here. I want to be a part of that. And, there isn't the same opportunity of agencies in the Waterloo area like there is in Toronto. So you see a lot more freelancers and a lot more businesses that start up. And we at Him and Her, we tap into them from time to time as well too, because They bring a lot of great to the table and can help us in terms of if there's overflow or if there's a skill set that we need to kind of ramp up with on the team. We'll always engage with freelancers.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Switching topics to the higher end of the value chain, right? User experience.
Yeah.
At what point do you internally decide not to play by the rules? I don't even know if there are rules. So in classic engineering, there's always rules, right? You got to stick within the boundaries, be it software or hardware. Try as much to break things such that at the end, when it gets to the hands of the customer, it doesn't break. In design and in creative thinking, are there such things as playing by the rules? Does that exist? Do you have guidelines?
I think, well, definitely on the UX side of things, for sure. Like mental models exist, and they exist because it's learned behavior, and leveraging those mental models for crafting a great user experience is essential. It's like, you want to make sure that you're facilitating a buying journey or that there's ease of discoverability, et cetera. So I'd say on the UX side of things, definitely rules exist. When you have an innovation or trying to introduce, you have to also be thinking about, okay, if this is a net new learned experience, what is the best way in which we can kind of introduce that and foster it over time so we could get it to a mental model kind of level, right? So what are some of the things that you'd have to take place to get there? For branding, and this is kind of weird because I'm a stickler for brand, and every time I share this comment with colleagues and friends, they laugh at me, but I view branding and identity as the dotted line in the middle of the road. So you want to stick in your lane, but there are always times where it just might be in your best interest to just pass the car in front of you. And knowing what those opportunities are, when to kind of break out of that mold, because there's certain times where you can't engage with the audience that you want to engage with. In my career, I have an example where we were working with a big tech company that had an established brand, an established identity. We were definitely had to work within the confines of the brand. And the marketing manager was kind of banging their heads against it and saying, this audience that we're trying to go after, very much the startup, younger audience in NorCal there. And our brand doesn't resonate with them. So, we need to try something different. And we threw some off the wall ideas out there on them that were definitely from their brand team was feeling a little gun shy about. But at the end of the day, the marketing manager said, what do we have to lose? Let's try this. And it was very successful. So that's a great example of, like, depending on who you're speaking to, your brand might not be helping you in those regards, and knowing that there is that leeway at times where you just have to do a little bit of a nudge around, right? But I definitely think that, when it comes to also creativity, I'd say at first there is no rules. Like, go wide, throw as many ideas out there as possible. Our natural human nature is to kill ideas. It's so much easier to say no to something than it is to say yes to something. Right. So limit that. Like, I worked with an individual at my previous agency who was a brilliant strategic thinker, and he introduced me to, like, the de Bono thinking hats. And it's always stuck with me because we'd be ideating and he'd be like, get that black hat off right now. Like, you have to be open to ideas. And it really gave a good structure in terms of how to evaluate after you've gone wide with some ideation by kind of following some of de Bono's thinking. So I'm grateful for Glenn for sharing some of that knowledge in my career.
Awesome. Walk us through what is de Bono thinking?
Oh, so there's a series, I believe it's like, it's 6 or 7 different thinking hats, and they're different colors that represent different phases of evaluating an idea. So that, that, okay, if I'm going to wear, like, I think it's like the blue hat means that you're open and you're subjective to all kinds of ideas. And I may butcher this because I don't have it memorized, so I apologize to any de bono thinkers out there. And then obviously the black hat is the critical hat, the one that you usually I would use at the end, where you want to call down and kind of really be the devil's advocate and say, no, that's not for us and whatnot. So it's a good structure that I like to follow. I just don't have it memorized, but the one that I found the most useful is for the black hat, where make sure you keep that to the end and don't kill ideas right out of the gate.
Got it. That's a brilliant way to, I was just reminded as you walked us through that story of Airbnb. So apparently in the early days of Airbnb, the founders were really struggling to get uptick, and they were, sitting and brainstorming at Y Combinator with Paul Graham and the rest of the team. And apparently one of the things that was told to them was, think of stepping outside the set of rules, and these rules have been told to you such that you can scale, right? And they thought about it, and they finally figured out, what if there's no uptick in terms of traffic based off of the pictures that's on the early stages of their website. So why don't we just go to New York City, click much better pictures, high resolution pictures of the properties that were there, and just delete the pictures that were taken by the dinky cell phones by the users. So they did that. They said, listen, this is not scalable. It's not like we can go and take high-res pictures of every single property. Let's just give it a shot. So it turns out they flew out, took a bunch of pictures of the exact same properties, and voila, there was insane uptick. And then they came back and they changed the website and the rules, the framework that allowed for better pictures to be